So I'm going to show you a foolproof way of germinating and growing on sweet peas. What you'll need is a Tupperware box, some damp kitchen roll, and obviously your sweet pea seeds. So you take your thoroughly damp kitchen roll, pop it in the bottom of the Tupperware box, and then just sprinkle the sweet pea seeds. These are Sutton's Supersonic, a good semi-dwarf variety that I like. Sprinkle them onto the damp kitchen roll, pop the top on to keep the moisture in, and then just leave those in a nice warm place for a few days to start chitting. So it's about 10 days later now, 10 days from when I first sowed the sweet pea seeds, and they've reached this stage now. So they're just showing a nice shoot and a root, and it's time to move them on into some proper soil. And the beauty of this way is that the ones that were never going to germinate just haven't sprouted, so you haven't wasted any time putting them in a pot in the first place. So this is just some general purpose compost here. I'm going to put a little bit in the pot, and now I'm going to very gently lift up each of the sweet peas. I'm going to hold them by their seed leaves, not the root and not the stem, both of which can be damaged quite easily. I'm just going to pluck them out of the pot here. Then I'm going to just drop them in to the space in this little plastic pot here. These are all they look a bit scruffy, they're all reused. I refuse to buy any new plastic now. We're just recycling all the ones we've already got. So just dangle it down and then gently drop the compost around the root, leaving a nice green shoot above the soil level. Just press in gently till it seems nice and firm. And then the gentlest of water around it, just to settle it in, like that. And there you are, it's ready to grow away. So it's about a month further on now, and if you wonder why I'm at the top of a ladder, it's because we live in a farm and we have a real problem with mice and little voles, and if I was to leave these on a bench in our greenhouse, the mice would come and dig them all up and eat them. So we've actually suspended them in a tray from the top of the greenhouse here, and that seems to have done the trick. So they're growing on nicely now, and the leaves are filling out, but a good thing to do just now is to try and encourage them to branch out a little bit more. Now some of them are doing it naturally, like this one, particularly where they flopped over. Can you see they're growing some nice little side shoots now? But you can encourage that even more by nipping out what we call the apical meristem. So that's the little growing point at the top of the plant here. And when that's growing, it sends back hormones to suppress the lateral branches. So if you would just go around nipping those tips out, I'm just using a pair of little mini sticks, but you can do it with your fingernails, like that. That will stop those hormones being sent back down the plant and allow these side shoots to develop nicely. And the more side shoots, the better, really, the more flowers you're going to get. So I'll be keeping these in here. They're not quite, I can't see the roots coming out of the bottom yet. So they're not quite ready to plant out yet. So I'll probably give them another couple of weeks in here to fill out nicely before I move them outside. So it's a couple of weeks further on. As you can see, they're all pushing out nicely now. And they're big enough, they'll be safe from the mice now, so they've come down. But what I am doing with them each day now is hardening them off, ready to go outside. And every day, I just pop them outside during the daylight hours, just to get them used to a little bit of harder weather. There we are. Now just sit out there for a few hours, then I'll bring them in again at night. And then when I'm sure, really, that our last frost is gone, I'll plant them straight out. So it's a few weeks further on now. The nights have warmed up and the sweet peas have been left out day and night now for about a week. And as you can see, they're growing quite nicely and fully. So it's time to plant them out into their pots. Now, what I've done is I'm using a really rich compost here. This is a mixture of my own garden compost and some well-rotted manure. If you didn't have that, then you needed to buy some in. Go for the richest you can. Germinating number 3 with some added compost in it. They're really greedy feeders. Now, as you can see, they've made a good root system now here without being too root bound, so they're perfect to go in. I've chosen the biggest, deepest pots I can find. I've got an assortment. Ideally, maybe you'd want one a little bit bigger than this, but you know, needs must. So let's just use what I can find. So I'm planting them in here, one in the middle and about 6 around the outside. As you can see, our earlier work pinching them out has paid dividends. They're all branching now quite nicely. And as I tip this one out, you'll see that's a perfect root system. It's just reached the bottom without becoming too pot bound. So you could maybe just loosen up some of those roots a little bit so they get out and explore the new compost once they're in. I put the compost so there's quite a nice gap here, because when you water, they're thirsty plants, sweet peas, so you want to be able to give them a really good water up to here without it spilling over the top. So don't fill the compost right level with the top, add just a little bit of drainage there. Now I'm planting about sort of 6 or 7 in a pot like this, one in the middle and a few around the outside. Now if these were tall standard sweet peas, I'd be making a wigwam of bean poles up here, but because I know these are dwarf ones, I'm actually using pea sticks as climbing frames for them, which are a bit shorter. So once they're in like that, I'm just positioning a few pea sticks around the outside for them to clamber up. And I know these, they're semi-dwarf, they'll grow to about 3 or 4 foot high, so this will be perfect. This will just give them a nice frame to climb up. So I'm using again about 3 or 5, depending on the pot size, pea sticks, pushing them firmly in, like that. And then just to make it a little bit tidier, I'll probably put a little bit of string around the top, as I have with this one, just to form a nice dome. And so I'm just going to keep those really well watered now for the next few weeks. And I'll see you again at flowering time. So here we are. It's early July, and my sweet peas have been flowering really nicely for 2 or 3 weeks. They're quite a nice height now. As I told you, they were a semi-dwarf. I positioned them not in full bright sun because they are a little bit prone to getting mildew on their leaves if they get a bit hot and dry. So this gets quite a lot of sun, but it's not blazing hot. I've also put them quite nice and close to my dipping tank because they are thirsty. So every time I come out, I slosh a watering can full of water in each of the ones just to keep them going. They're hungry, thirsty plants. But really my job now is just to keep picking. So about once a week we come out and we pick nice long stems, the early ones. And what we want to try and get away from is them setting seeds. So for example, up here, can you see they've flowered, they've gone over, starting to set seed pods. That's what you don't want, because that signals to the plant that it's produced seeds, its life is over, it needn't flower anymore. So we want to be, as well as cutting the lovely flowers, we also want to be removing these. And then hopefully you'll have a nice summer-long display of lovely scented sweet peas.